we do care and that we do feel and that we do have emotions, and these Cybermen just don't. Cold, hard, cruel.
But good design is good design, no matter when it was 60 years ago or today.
It creeps me out because of the story. It's amazing.
Hello and welcome to The Best Ever, where picking a favourite is fighting talk. I'm Morgan Jeffrey, Executive Editor at radiotimes.com, and I'm joined once again by a panel of guests. Each of them has come armed with an opinion. Their mission is to convince me that their pick, and only theirs, deserves the title of The Best Ever. This episode, we're peeking out from behind the sofa to debate the best ever Doctor Who monster. Joining me on the panel are the actor Sophie Aldred, known to Doctor Who fans, of course, as Ace. The actor Dan Starkey, aka Strax the Sontaran, and Louise Griffin, radiotimes.com's sci-fi and fantasy editor, who has not appeared in Doctor Who at the time of recording.
Don't count it out.
There's still time. Sophie, Doctor Who has featured so many iconic monsters across its 60 years. Don't give away your pick just yet, but how easy or difficult was it for you to pick a favourite?
Well, I didn't realise I had to pick just one for a start. So I had a whole list of them, and it was really hard because they're iconic. Everybody, you say Doctor Who and people go monsters. You know, that's what Doctor Who, one of the great things it's known for. So yeah, how do you pick? But somehow I managed.
And Dan, you're an actor who's played many parts on the show and its various spin-offs, but you've played an alien on the show. What are the key ingredients, do you think, to a great Doctor Who monster?
Oh yes. Well, this was very difficult, sort of like working out what was the best one, because so I had to break it down into different criteria, and I think it reflects Doctor Who is such a sort of changeable sort of program as well, and so it's science fiction, but also there's a bit of horror there as well, and and there's also a wonderful honourable tradition in Doctor Who of just wanting to scare children, and I think creatures that sort of fulfil all those different criteria. I think those are definitely very important. But good design is good design, no matter when it was 60 years ago or today.
It's a great show, I think, for safe scares, Doctor Who, isn't it? So many fans now, when you ask them, what's their earliest memory, it's of being scared by Doctor Who. But it's that safe scare. It's not that kind of horror movie scare. It's kind of, there's something quite almost comforting about being scared by a Doctor Who monster. Fans look back fondly on being terrified by Daleks or Cybermen or whichever monster it may be.
I think it marks out a sign of fandom as well, because I was too scared, so I stopped watching. And my son, aged 2, I think, was shown me being surrounded by Daleks and was so scared that he never watched again. So, you have to have a certain kind of grit to be a Doctor Who fan and love being scared, I think.
Yeah, I think my first story that I saw was Full Circle, when I was probably about 3 years old.
The Marshmen.
Yes, who was like the creature from the Black Lagoon. And I think it did scare me, but I watched it again, and I think I watched Metal Mickey for about sort of like 6 weeks, because I didn't really understand, so like you couldn't watch things at the same time. Then when I went back, it was kind of like the end of Warrior's Gate, and again, that's pretty sort of like, Lion Men, that sort of thing. So I think it must have hooked me, clearly.
I mean, your son needn't have been scared if it's Ace going up against the Daleks. If anything, the Daleks should be scared of Ace. Right?
Well, that's true, although I forgot that we showed him the bit where I get surrounded and I shut my eyes and it looks like Ace is doomed, and then we couldn't find the next episode, so he never knew what happened.
Oh no.
Leave them hanging.
The ultimate cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Lou, you're going up against 2 Doctor Who icons here. Are
No
you
pressure.
feeling, regardless, are you feeling confident about your pick for the best ever Doctor Who monster?
I think I am. You know what? I've picked, without spoiling it, I think a modern icon of Doctor Who, a modern classic, I would say. It's one of my favourites for a long time, so I'm ready to defend it.
Fantastic. Well, let's not forget, whoever emerges triumphant here today will be awarded our coveted best ever trophy. But first, you must eliminate or exterminate the opposition. So let's kick things off, Sophie, with you. In your opinion, what is the best ever Doctor Who monster?
Well, I'm wearing the clue. Not only have I kind of come cosplayed, sort of, slightly, but this little chap here should give you a clue. Made by my mum for my charm bracelet this Christmas. So, yes, for me, it's the Cybermen. And there are many reasons which we'll probably get into. But I think really that's the thing that I was really scared of when I was young. My mum stopped me watching Doctor Who because I was so scared of the old ones I'm talking as well. I think the classic Cybermen, not particularly the ones from my era, but we'll get onto that too, But the early ones, you know, I think perhaps Tomb of the Cybermen, I can't remember the other, Invasion is
Invasion,
the one called,
and the ones that I find particularly scary are the earliest ones, the 10th
the
Planet
10th Planet.
Cybermen.
10th Planet.
They have the cloth
That's
faces
it.
and the human
That's
hands.
What, because the stocking masks, there's something about a stocking mask, isn't there? And also the way their mouths just clicked open and then the sound just came out like that. And it's sort of slightly humanoid. And then you learn later that they are actually in transition from humans, and that's horrible. I mean, the idea that, you know, that they were originally human with feelings and thoughts. And I remember reading as an audiobook, Mike Tucker co-wrote a book called Illegal Alien, and as I read that, it was scary all over again.
There's something terrifying, I think, about the Cybermen in that there are so many monsters in Doctor Who and all of science fiction that will just blast you with a ray gun and you're dead. And of course, that's scary in its own way. But the idea that they will convert you, they will take away your humanity, I think that's what's really scary about them, isn't it?
That's the thing, because I think that's the thing that we all fear, don't we? Look at our conversation at the moment about AI. They are these sort of transitioning AI, aren't they? With no feelings, no emotions. And I think for me, because I'm quite an emotional person, I think that is very scary, to think of something that cannot feel and doesn't care about humanity. And I think completely the opposite is true of the Doctor, of course, because he is deeply in love, he, she, they are deeply in love with humanity. And that's the very thing that puts us apart from everything else on this planet, we think. Maybe, we don't know, but you know, is that we do care and that we do feel and that we do have emotions, and these Cybermen just don't. Cold, hard, cruel.
And Danley, we'll get onto your choices in a moment, but just as Doctor Who fans, what are you making of Sophie's choice at this point?
No, I think Sophie makes a very compelling argument, and certainly the Cybermen are definitely up there as in the pantheon of Doctor Who monsters. And I think it is precisely that kind of, the mutability of them as well. Because in the 60s, it's that fear of spare part surgery, and sort of like, the more we replace ourselves, the less human we become. And now, of course, you know, in the sort of like in the 2000s with sort of like the Age of Steel, that it was all about, you know, mobile phones being replaced. The kind of upgrading that humanity isn't good enough. So, and now, as you say, the sort of whole fear with AI, that fear of technology, and so like having that embodied that's a strong argument. I almost buy it.
even sort of, I have memories from the early days of New Who. There are those episodes where it's like you actually kind of see the process of a human becoming a Cyberman. I just remember how scary that was. You hear it, and the saws that going, and that sort of, those noises are kind of stuck in my head a bit, even all these years later. It's terrifying.
And what about the bit where Kate Lethbridge-Stewart, you know, from the modern series, where she gets carted off, and the whole deal with the Brigadier and that sort of repetition of that going on. I mean, that's scary stuff, even now.
And Sophie, you worked alongside the Cybermen in Silver Nemesis, 1988. What memories do you have of filming that particular story?
Well, I was going to say, also, of course, with Silver Nemesis, that's why the Nazis are so attracted to the Cybermen, because they are these completely all-powerful uber men who are very attractive to the character played by Anton Diffring. So yes, my memories though are not so scary, perhaps. Our production manager, Gary Downey, had decided, because what was needed to play the insides of Cybermen is big, very tall, because you see small Cybermen around at conventions, and they look quite cute, really.
Yeah.
But what you need for a proper imposing Cybermen is your sort of David Banks type, very tall, and also quite muscular to fill out the costumes. So Gary thought to himself, where could we find a whole load of people like that? So he looked in the male model catalogues and picked some male models. Yeah. So of course, I had the great pleasure of working alongside these male models.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and that was great fun.
Yeah. Dan, we'll come to you now, but before we get into your counter argument, I believe you do actually have a few honourable mentions, which we will allow before we get into your pick for the best ever Doctor Who
Oh,
monster.
I wasn't allowed on.
It's all coming out now.
Well, I think there's a whole range of different monsters that I thought of when I was looking at all these things. And I was trying to be quite scientific about it in terms of having criteria which makes them the best, objectively. And so one of the things which I think is specific to Doctor Who, unlike lots of other science fiction programmes, is that it has the combination of taking the mundane and the everyday and making it extraordinary. And so in some cases, it's a human being that's possessed. Or, we see lots of episodes where it's just the acting, which is terrifying, like
A
Midnight.
plastic chair.
Yeah, exactly. So that thing like the Autons, the shop window dummy can kill you, or the telephone wire can kill you, or a statue in a park is actually sort of like going behind you. But it's also, sometimes we see sort of creatures like big spiders or big beetles or whatever, that sit on people's backs and let them do things. But when I was a kid, and again, this is a wonderful concept for an alien, perhaps better than the actual execution. In the Peter Davison episode, Frontios, there's an alien race called the Tractators.
Now this is a slightly niche choice, and
It's
I
a
love
niche
it.
choice.
I love you for it, Dan.
But they're like woodlice. And I really liked woodlice when I was a kid for some reason, because they're so cool. Survivors from the Jurassic. But so woodlice. So they're like sort of woodlice, but so like about the size of a human being with kind of like a face. And if you look at them, they've got little fishy hands, and they sort of shimmy around, and they live below ground, and they sort of tunnel around. And I liked woodlice anyway, but then look at them again. So those kind of things.
So bring back the Tractators.
Bring back the
Russell T.
Tractators.
Davies,
That's
if you're
what we need
watching.
more
They
of.
sound cute though, rather than scary.
They were quite scary. They're quite sort of like, I got horrible as well. But so I think that's one of the specific sort of criteria where my actual choice, which is not the obvious one for me to choose.
Okay. Ooh.
What I'm going to go for, because it's the design. Actually, I've been rewatching quite a lot of old Who on sort of the iPlayer now it's available, and looking at it, sort of going, from the stuff in the 70s, going, "Ooh, I'm very glad I'm not an Exelon." Looking at all these different creatures, and seeing how the design is perpetuated, so like through old Who and new Who, and also the fact that it's got a science fiction sort of impetus, as well as a kind of, if it's a monster, it's not a creature. It's not an alien citizen. It's something which is quite horrible, quite viscerally horrible. And then also this kind of thing of the uncanny, something which is quite sort of changeable as well. And I think the one which I go for, rather than Sontarans, I will pick the Zygons.
Oh.
Because they're an amazing design. They're blobby, they're horrible. They're sort of like, there's the whole ship is grown. It's got that very sort of tangible sort of like thing about it. It's organic, yeah, and it's very well realised.
What colour are they?
They're sort of orangey, sort of
Greeny
fleshy.
red.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, mottled organic.
That's a good Doctor Who colour.
Yeah, and especially even like in Terror of the Zygons, the 70s episode, it's wonderfully lit as well. So it's just they live in darkness. But also the crucial thing is they can shape change. Which means that the person you see walking on the street could actually be, they're not actually who they say they are. They're actually an alien in disguise. And so it's got that thing of looking askance at the everyday. So the nurse in the hospital, you turn around and all of a sudden, she's turned into a big blobby monster.
Or the entire cabinet.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, there's a great nuance with that, actually, because in the Terror of the Zygons, which is their first appearance, 1975, they are more or less kind of out-and-out villains.
Yeah.
But when they brought them back in the modern series, they did play with it a little bit, and there were as there is with any race, there were alien race, there were good Zygons, there were bad Zygons, and they played with that, and what does it really mean? And there were like themes of identity that they explored as well.
Yeah. It's incredibly rich, and especially those stories how they were developed. Because they came back with the 50th anniversary special, which was amazing seeing them again. And but that particular sort of couple of stories, the Zygon inversion and the Zygon invasion. Yeah.
Can I ask a question, please, sir? It's great because Dan obviously approaches it from the scholar point of view.
Yeah.
The university.
Yeah. Well, Dan watches old Doctor Who and claims it's research, which is
Very much well.
Of course. Yes, my question is, do they have a particular voice which is scary, or do they use the voice of their
They have a bit
their
of
body?
They have a bit of both, because the original sort of like Zygons, then there's doubling with the actors. So the original Bruton sort of talks like this. In a very hissy kind of way.
there's a sort of a slight tremor to the voice.
Absolutely.
Right,
There's also the thing with all the 70s monsters as well, I think which is so exciting about them is that sort of like, because the mask doesn't move very well, that it's almost just a vocal performance. So they
Right.
have to be really on it vocally. And the same with the Sontarans as well, in fairness. My stock in trade
Yeah.
because they've all got very good diction. Also, if you can't hear yourself properly, then you're going to speak louder anyway. So it's kind of it's where quite a lot of that vocal attack comes from, which I think is
Yes.
I think it sustains itself.
And James Atchison, who was the designer, he went on to design for films and won multiple Oscars. But you're right, they're kind of that sort of fleshy, squishy design. They sort of look a little bit like a human pasty.
Yes.
But I love the way that design, as you say, it extends to their spaceship, and it's all very organic and squishy and horrible. Do you have a favourite Zygon moment or scene?
Oh gosh, I think it's.
I mean, I love personally, I love the moment. There's the cliffhanger, I think, to episode 1, Terror of the Zygons, which is the first time you see them, but it's only for the briefest of moments.
Yes.
You get like a snatch of just a little glimpse,
cool.
and it's so quick. And that is actually, I think, one of the most terrifying Doctor Who cliffhangers, because it's Sarah Jane Elizabeth Sladen. She's on the phone speaking to Tom Baker, the 4th Doctor, and then something comes and grabs her on the shoulder. She spins around, and you just see this creature lunge at her. It's absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, and I think the sting they have as well. They can.
Yes.
They
and
can
also-
sting.
Yeah, they can sting.
Oh, okay.
And also the modern series as well. When they actually change, previously it was a much more sort of like video to tape effect. When they change, they kind of like regurgitate as well. So it's this kind of like it's this retching that's sort of like and this kind of black bile that comes out as well as soon as they're changing shape. So it's got this visceral body horror thing going on as well, which is that's cool. The Sontarans are also very good, but they can so they can stick their tongues out of the out of the mask as well.
But
which
again,
is,
Sontarans have nuance. There's good ones.
Yes.
There's,
They have that.
There's bad ones. When you first came to play a Sontaran, did you look back at kind of the classic portrayals, or did you want to do something entirely different and say, I'm just going to give my take on it?
I definitely watched because I had a VHS of the Time Warrior that I got when I was about 11. So I watched that again and reminded myself of it, and sort of like but also you look and see what's actually in the script that you also bring out and how different they are. But they, I think they were very true to the original concept in the Sontaran stratagem when I came back. But I did find myself doing the thing with the tongue involuntarily.
Yeah.
Until the director said, "Look, what are you doing?" I'm just walking along with this gun going.
It's the Kevin Lindsay tongue.
Yes, it's Kevin Lindsay tongue. Yeah, that's like because the mask was so thick in the 1970s, it's all you could just see the eyes and a little bit of the mouth. But so that's actually
That's acting.
yeah, that's acting. Yeah.
Tongue acting.
Lou, we've had Cybermen, we've had Zygons, 2 classic Doctor Who monsters, terrific choices. I'm already torn, but are you about to throw me a curveball?
I think hopefully I am if I argue it well enough. I think hopefully it's a favourite of mine, and it's the Weeping Angels.
I knew it. I knew it. That was near the top of my list as well.
I think it goes back to what Sophie was saying about just how terrifying they can be. I remember watching Blink, and I think it's just such an incredible introduction for a Doctor Who monster. The Doctor is kind of not really anywhere in the vicinity, so we, I think, feel super powerless. The main characters feel so powerless against these creatures. And they're just, I think what makes them so brilliant is they're just so simple. Like Stephen Moffat just plays on such a sort of like childlike fear in us of the dark and of something in the corner of the room or out the corner of your eye, and he just puts it to the extreme. And I was thinking about it and I was like, compared to some other monsters, they shouldn't be that scary because they don't out and out kill you most of the time. I think they were described as like merciful killers. They just send you back in time. But just the way they're presented and it's just terrifying.
But again, I do think there is something quite chilling about that. As much as I was saying, in the same way that the Cybermen don't just blast you with a ray gun, no offense to the Sontarans, but the Cybermen don't just blast you. The fact that the Weeping Angels touch you and send you back in time and you're gone, you'll never see your family and friends again. It's scary in a different way.
Yeah, and we see the impact of that so much. They're so well written into the episodes as well. Like I'm thinking particularly the Angels Take Manhattan when Rory is just whipped away, and that's his exit from the show. It's the last we see of him.
Yeah.
It's so abrupt, it's so scary, it's so emotional. I think even though they're a newer monster, I think they've immediately worked their way into the best of them. I think they're brilliant.
The canon, and they're very much an example of something you were talking about, Dan, which is so many great Doctor Who monsters are, you take something every day and you just go, what if that was a Doctor Who monster, right? And that can be anything from a statue or a shop window dummy or a crack in the wall, right? And I think that's another part of what makes them scary.
I remember at my school there where they put an angel statue at one point and everyone was just creeped out because everyone, even the non-Doctor Who fans, knew why it was scary. And even now if I see like an angel statue in a graveyard or anything like that. It creeps me out
Yeah.
because of the story. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think Stephen Moffat has one in his garden, which is
Yeah.
bold from the I would be tempting fate, yes.
I don't know, and nowhere near
I
me,
would be
thank
having,
you.
there's definitely a sort of a meta Doctor Who story to be written where that one comes to life and
definitely.
and zaps him back in time. You're right though, it's the first post-2005 monster we've had, it's kind of mentioned here today. Do you think the Weeping Angels have earned their spot alongside Cybermen, Zygons, Tractators?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think so, because also they've been evolved quite quickly. Sort of every time, I think Stephen Moffat said this, but every time they've appeared, they've had something new to do, and there's been a new scare to them. I remember seeing the first time a Weeping Angel snapped someone's neck. And okay, this is a thing now, and that's also terrifying.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's important for Doctor Who monsters to evolve as they go on, and to always bring something a little bit scarier and a little bit, even the Daleks over the years, they've evolved so much. They're still kind of what they were at the beginning, but they've got all these new terrifying things to them. I think that's really important.
I mean, the Weeping Angels, especially in Blink, they're based on a gimmick, and it's a brilliant gimmick and a scary gimmick. But you're right in that could become old and tired, but they keep evolving, don't they? And we keep seeing kind of new sides to them. I guess, Sophie, what are you thinking of Louise's choice? Are you a fan of the Weeping Angels? Did they terrify you when you watched?
I'm a complete fan of the Weeping Angels. It reminds me, actually, went with a friend and her son to the exhibition, where you could walk through what it was.
Doctor Who Experience?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it was brilliant.
R.I.P.
And he said on the bus on the way, he said, I just hope there's no Weeping Angels. And we just all looked at each other and went, because I thought there must be Weeping Angels. And we got to this corridor, and the person who was sort of leading our group, he was the youngest there. And he said, Angus, would you just stay at the back? And I said to my husband, just actually stay with him, because I knew it was just going to be some kind of real jump scare with a Weeping Angel. And sure enough, so my husband was sort of looking after him at the back. But even then, I knew it was coming. I knew it was going to happen then. You could just tell, and even then, it was blooming scary. It was incredible.
And Dan, what about you? I mean, you made a pitch for the Zygons, but Weeping Angels a strong contender.
Oh, they're a very strong contender, yeah. And I think again, it's the everyday made terrifying.
Yeah.
And I think it's also it's a mechanic. It's grandmother's footsteps. It's that kind of closing your eyes and sort of and hoping for the best, because it's all you can do. Or keeping them open again. Yeah, the story's called Blink. Yeah, Blink, not Squint. Yeah. Sorry.
There is a flaw, however, which Colin Baker first brought to my attention, which is that what you need to do is you just need to wink.
Yeah.
Because if you do that, then you never actually got your eyes shut.
I can't wink, so I'd be in real trouble.
Oh,
You'd be
you
fine.
see, I'd be great. Look at that. They don't scare me.
Well, I mean, do think it's worth addressing at this point that no one has picked the Daleks, often considered the most iconic Doctor Who monster. Did either of you, or you, Lou, did you consider
Yeah,
Daleks?
I definitely considered it. I think it came down to me I think with Doctor Who, there's just such, for every fan, a personal connection to these monsters, and I just remembered the visceral fear of the Weeping Angels, which I guess is definitely there with the Daleks as well. But I don't know, I think the Daleks maybe are just so iconic that they're just sort of sewn into the fabric of the show, and sometimes we need to just celebrate the other ones.
Celebrate the underdogs.
They're in a class of their own.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I've got good record with Daleks anyway, so they don't scare me so much.
No.
As long as I got my baseball bat,
You've got
I'm
your
right.
your baseball bat handy. You'll be absolutely fine. Well, that's it. Daleks dismissed. I'm not sure the internet or Nick Briggs
No,
will
I
ever
don't
forgive us.
think we
Nick isn't
dismissed
here.
them.
It's fine.
I think what we do with Daleks is we put them in the category of their own.
All their own.
Yes.
And we give them a special award.
Yeah, there we
all
go.
Of their own.
There we go.
Yeah.
Well, Radio Times audience has also been having their say on this topic. On X, Liam Rudden voted for the Autons, who have come up. Great monster. On Facebook, Kate Keeley was backing the Ood, and Sonia McLean picked the Silence. Although I don't remember them, I have to say. Also votes on Threads for the Midnight Monster and Fenric. Absolutely terrifying, of course, Sophie. But the time has come for me to make a decision, difficult as it is. Which of you has managed to convert me? Sophie, you argued that the Cybermen were the best ever Doctor Who monster. Dan, you made a case for the Zygons. And Lou, you voted for the Weeping Angels and you didn't even blink. Who is today's winner and the recipient of our best ever trophy? I think you're right, Lou. I think it so much comes down to personal connection. I think any one of these would be a worthy winner. So many great Doctor Who monsters across 60 years. But I do think of the choices presented here today, they're the longest lasting, so iconic. I think the kind of the gimmick, the premise of the monster is so terrifying, that complete loss of humanity. So I'm gonna say the best ever Doctor Who monster is officially the Cybermen. Congratulations, Sophie. You are today's winner.
Thank you, Cybermen. I'd like to thank all those male models and all the new gorgeous people as well who suffer in those suits.
Yeah.
Well, you know what that's like.
A
Dan,
salute
you've
to
said.
the actors.
Oh, yeah.
playing
All
Doctor
of
Who
them,
monsters.
actually. All people who've ever been inside a Doctor Who monster.
Yeah,
This is for you.
this is for you.
Yes. Yes! Except I don't know how I'm going to get the cup home in my handbag. But no, yeah, a win is always good. But then it's not me, it's the Cybermen, isn't it?
Yes, it was an absolute travesty. These human scum will rue their treachery.
Sophie made such an amazing argument. I couldn't really get the arguments in against her. The Cybermen are absolutely brilliant, so it was well won.
Well, thank you for joining us for this episode of The Best Ever. Did you agree with our verdict? And which do you think is the best ever Doctor Who monster? Let us know on X at Radio Times. We'll be bringing you new episodes of The Best Ever weekly, so be sure to head to radiotimes.com/The Best Ever for all the latest news and exclusive content from each new episode. If you're listening to the podcast, you can also subscribe and review The Best Ever on your podcast outlet of choice. That's all for now, but join us again soon for more of The Best Ever.